Hi everybody, I'm Amy, this is my wife
Hello.
Maggie, and together we are ThinkerThemer, and today is a different kind of video because we have not one, but two reprints of Japanese games that have been quite notoriously hard to find in the past, and I know this because I've tried looking for them, and so as soon as we heard that they were coming to crowdfunding, we wanted to check them out.
Yes, so the games are My Favorite Things, which I believe used to be called My Favorite Things, so they've added a little I in there for memory's sake. And the other game is the String Railway Collection, because it kind of has two games or two game modes in one. One is a String Railway, and the other one's String Railway Cubed.
And as usual on our channel, this is a completely unpaid preview. The only reason we wanted to check them out is because I wanted to play these games for so long. But please keep in mind that everything we show you today is going to be in prototype form. So all of the components and the rules are subject to change. So please check out the campaign page, which we'll link to below. So let's first talk about My Favorite Things, which is the most unusual trick-taking game I think we've ever played. It is a combination of trick-taking and party game, and it's by a designer who goes by the name of Neil Gilly. Now, the way it works is that everybody is going to have a set of whiteboard cards, essentially cards that you can write on, and hidden behind those cards are the numbers 1 to 5, as well as a broken heart card. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be assigning one of your neighbors a category, and that category can be anything that you think of that is going to enable people to rank their preferences within that category. So you could say your favorite vegetable, your favorite holiday destinations, or people you'd like to get stuck in an elevator with. You could put anything on there. And the idea is that that person takes those cards and they have to secretly write down their number 1 through to number 5. And then on the broken heart, which is essentially the least powerful card, but we'll come back to that in a moment, your least liked thing in that category, you have to write something that you actively dislike. So with the first 5, you actually could be 5 things that you like in that category. So 5 holiday destinations that I love, but I'm going to put them down in order because when I hand them back to the neighbor who gave them to me, they're going to now not know the numbers that sit behind each of those ideas, concepts. And then they are going to be using those cards in a trick-taking game.
Try and guess the ranking of, where could this thing sit, and all of the things that they like. Do they like this more than the other? And therefore, obviously, it's going to be a more powerful card when I play it in this trick.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is, so we play out tricks then, and what happens is everybody has a different category and a different set of cards that was written on by their neighbor, and they're going to be playing those cards out, guessing what they think the number of that card is. Once everybody has played a card in that trick, the numbers are going to be revealed, and that's when you get to learn something about the people around the table, because you know everybody's categories, and you're like, oh, I could see why you thought Maggie would like Tokyo more than Seoul, for example, as a holiday destination, but she surprised us all. And of course you're grappling with your own ranking and the fact that I played that and I thought it was their number 1, but actually it was their number 3, and now I didn't win the trick. But there's a little twist as well in the trick-taking component, in that, of course, a 1 will beat a 2, will beat a 3, 4, and 5, but then the broken heart will always beat a 1. So if you think someone has played a card that probably is their neighbor's favorite thing in that category, then you can use strategy to try and pick the thing that you know your neighbor dislikes from their category and play that and win the trick. And that's essentially the game. So it's really interesting.
As you can imagine, there's a lot of talking or a lot of banter and a lot of like, where could this sit and why? And then once actually it's revealed, the whole, what? How could that be the case? Why is this higher than this other thing? So there's a lot of good discussions around the table.
There's good discussions, and the side effect of playing this game is that you learn a lot about the people around the table. And so if we think about whether this game is right for you or not, I will first caveat it that it works better with a group of people that at least somewhat know each other. Because obviously if you know something about the person, you can give them a category where you think you might be able to pick their ranking. And so when Maggie and I work together, sometimes that works out and sometimes that doesn't. But, it's more fun when you're actually learning more information about your friends and you have a bit of a leg up in terms of thinking about the rankings.
Also the number of players. Like, it's obviously going to be a game, it actually plays 3 to 6, and it's going to be a game that is going to shine at the higher player counts.
But this game has a real party game feel to it. So if you think about it being both party game and trick-taking game, it feels much more like a party game style category. It is the most interesting trick-taking game I think I've ever played, but from a game vibe feel, it feels like to me a game of just one, where a lot of the game is really about the fact that you've both written down something and you've got some hive mind going on and you're like, oh, of course we both wrote down the same thing. Oh no, that's terrible. It's similar with this. It's so much about the table talk. And what's really cool about the gameplay actually is that if I had, Maggie's ranking of best holiday destinations and Maggie had, people you want to get stuck in an elevator with, well, actually what happens is the cards, the things that people have written on the cards are full knowledge to everyone around the table. And as the numbers get revealed, you're actually learning more about everybody's hand. And so then you yourself, when someone across the table plays something, so Maggie writes Albert Einstein, and I'm like, well, would this other person want to be stuck in an elevator with Albert Einstein? So I'm trying to second guess what everybody else's values are on their cards, not just my own. So there's a few layers of the strategy there, and you're not just learning about the neighbor, you're kind of
you're learning about everyone really
everybody.
around the table.
It's
quite fun.
It's really fun. I took this to work and played this with my colleagues, and they absolutely adored it, to the point where some of them were like, this is the best game you've ever taught us. And that is the power of a party game. It's super accessible and people enjoy when they get to interact with people around the table.
Now, people know that I don't tend to enjoy fun games, so for me, I think it's still one of those, I thoroughly enjoy the discussions and the getting to know people and the little details of why would this rank higher, and then whatever conversation ensues after that. So I do enjoy this one from that point.
I'll also say it doesn't outstay its welcome. You only play 2 rounds, and so you're giving 2 categories, and by the time you've gone through those 2 rounds, it's time to move on to another heavier game at our table. So that is my favorite things.
And now let's talk a little bit about the String Railway collection. So this is a really interesting one because the String Railway game, you're actually playing with, you're creating a full kind of railway network with string. So the map itself, actual string. So the map itself is, you kind of make different shapes depending on the number of players. And so it's like the border is this black string. And then you're also creating a mountain somewhere inside the map, which is going to be this green string. And then you've got a creek or a river. So it's just this little blue string. And so what you're going to be doing is everyone's going to have their kind of starting station. And on your turn, you're going to be drawing a new station card that you're going to place wherever you want on the map, as long as obviously it's within the map. And then you're going to be laying down one of your string railway tracks. Usually either starting from your kind of home station or extending from any other station that you've already kind of linked to. The whole thing is the stations that the first time that you connect to a station, you're going to be getting points. And it's interesting because it's one of those games where the first person that connects can often get more points. Subsequent people, as they connect, they're going to get fewer points. But there's also limits to the number of players that can connect to certain stations. So there might be, as we're laying the track, you can not just place it, connect to one station, you can kind of connect, some of these strings are considerably longer than others. So you can have a super long line that connects multiple, so kind of goes over multiple stations and then connects to somebody else's station, for example, which fortunately or unfortunately is one of the ways where you can take points away from other people. So it's an interesting sort of balance of all of that, plus making sure that you don't go over anyone else's string, because as soon as you go over any other string, that's going to be minusing points. So there's a lot of being really strategic with how do I bend this and how do I go around, and now I'm going to block you by kind of creating my track this way.
Yeah, this game has such a physicality to it. It is actually like a dexterity game because...
But it's not stressful, I would say, because it's not like, if you did something and it destroys it, then you lose. Like, no, it's just like
it is about, how do I... Maybe if I bend my string around this way, and then you get people who are even more strategic when they play this game and they're trying to cut other people off. And it is really about almost protecting your area of turf, because you're going to be putting down stations, but you want to connect through as many stations as you can with every piece of string, because you only get 5 pieces of string in every game. So you only get 5 turns and you need to maximize the amount of stations that you're going through. And so you're going to have to get up in other people's business. You're you're going to do well if you can be where all the action is. Or maybe if you hang back and you completely safeguard and you get lots of points in your little corner, but you've got to decide which strategy you're going to take. The first mode of this is much more like a party game. The mode that Maggie has described is the original mode of the game, and it's just a real delight to see people and their reaction to when you give them a handful of string. So here you go, you're going to be building a railroad, and they have these 5 pieces of string, and everyone's always playing with the string when it's not their turn.
There's inevitably people, string some of their hair,
string hanging on their faces.
So that happens.
And it is just a delight to play. It's super easy to teach as well. So when you reveal the station and place it down, all of the stations are a little bit different. There's of course duplicates in there, but some of the stations are going to allow you to immediately place a second station. Other stations are going to be ones that actually will give you points for every time you connect to them, not just the first time. And then, as Maggie mentioned, there's ones that are going to reward or detract from having other players join into that station.
There's even ones that are meant to go in the mountains. So if you manage to place them in the mountains, which means that you're going to have to cross that mountain string, which will cost you a point. But then by reaching that station in the mountains, you get extra points. So it's a bit of an interesting balance as well.
Light, good, route building fun with a dexterity element.
Yes.
And there's a lot of like, does that reach? And everyone, judging whether your string actually reaches. Like, is that allowed? Yeah.
So that is the base sort of mode of this. Then there's String Railway Cubed, which is more of a pick up and deliver type game. So again, we're going to be creating the border or the map with the sort of main string. But then in this one, the aim is actually going to be trying to connect to all these different stations that have cubes of different colors representing sort of different materials in them. And what you're going to try and do is create your network so that then you can use engine action points to move, essentially deliver the corresponding cube to the corresponding station. So if it's a green cube, then deliver it to the green station, or brown, which is the wood, and like that sort of stuff. Interestingly, there's a couple of complications in this. One, you start out with very limited engine actions. So laying out your track is usually free, but then every movement that you take with those cubes is going to cost you an action, and then there's other things that you can spend an action to add more cubes to stations to give you a bit more variety. There's also these purple cubes that you start with a contract where you're trying to manage to get usually a purple cube to come through a particular set of combinations of colors of stations to fulfill the contract and get 5 points by the end. But if you can't fulfill it, then it's usually -2 points. So you have that little bit of extra tension, but also along the way you can upgrade your engine, which is again going to cost you action points, so you're kind of going to be limited in that turn. But then it means that by the end of it, you could actually have 6 actions that you could spend every single turn. So it's an interesting combination of things to balance in terms of how you spend those actions.
Also, in this mode of the game, the number of strings you have does not change.
Still 5.
You have 5 turns to do so much.
Yep.
And even working your way up to the point where you can deliver the purple cube to get rid of the order that you have, not even to get points for it, but just to clear it out so it's not worth -2 points. that takes a lot of forethought. You're having to upgrade your locomotive so that you get more action, so that you can, and then plan out your route, because you can only move cubes along your own colored string.
Yeah.
So you have to build a really efficient network. And this game surprised me so much. I found it so challenging.
It's quite thinky. Yeah, I actually, which is interesting because with the base game is a lot more relaxed,
light, party.
very, very light, almost to the point where like as people may know, I don't tend to enjoy fun, light games. And yeah, it's dexterity. It's not stressful dexterity, but I'm like, oh, I sort of lose interest after a little bit. With this second mode, I am very engaged because it's super strategic, which obviously then means that depending on your playing group, you're going to have to obviously gauge, which is going to be more suitable. But I really thoroughly enjoyed the thinkiness.
There's two other layers to the game that I really enjoyed as well. One is that when you are delivering the right colored cube to the right station, and thereby you get to take that cube, it gets scored at the end of the game, but you're going to score for differentiated sets of colored cubes. So you want as much variety as you can get. And you want to try and collect sets of all 5, because they're worth 15 points, which is a lot of points in this game. And the other thing is that you have your own personal station, and once per game, you can put that station out and you can allocate a color to it, a color of resource, as long as no one else has used that color resource, to make it a station of that particular color. So if the cards have been dealt out and you just happen to not be near a green station, well, guess what? You can use your home station and make it green, and that's going to help you achieve what you need to get done. But again, I found that this mode surprisingly crunchy, and probably the better choice if you have fewer people around the table. Of course, it's going to be more interesting the more string is laid out on the board, but that's what I really enjoy about the first mode. So I probably prefer, and this is because I do enjoy a party game. I enjoy a game actually that's quite accessible and easy to get to the table, and the first mode of this certainly is, because you're up and running really quickly, and people love playing with string. And the more people you have, the more chaotic it's going to be, and it just creates a lot of laughter around the table. And I know Maggie prefers the second mode.
Yes. And like even the energy around the table is very different. So with the first one, you have this sort of very lively, everyone's like, oh, I don't know, that doesn't look legit to me, or that. Whereas with the second mode, when everyone is just working out, their network, and how am I going to get that purple cube through this net? So it's a lot more quiet, it's a lot more strategic, and I tend to kind of enjoy that a little bit more. So
which is totally fine. So as you can see, very different responses to the same game, and both of those modes are included in the box as far as we're aware. Check out the campaign page, of course. But really two different games in this box, but both use string in a very clever way. So I really appreciate both of these games. It's exciting to see them both come back and people being able to get them. Excited that they've been picked up for a reprint from these wonderful 2 Japanese designers. We didn't mention that String Railway is actually by Hiyashi Hisashi as well.
Yes.
So it's a powerhouse designer making this like crazy little game that's all about string.
Very quirky. Like it's one of those very
quirky,
unique experiences then to have in your collection.
So please, if you're interested in these games, go and check out the campaign page linked to below. If you enjoyed this preview, please hit like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll be back with more board game content soon. But otherwise, bye for now.
Bye.